I think I'll stay hidden for a moment until somebody shows up. After all, when I hit that streaming thing, it takes a while for people to get their notifications. And I just... Hello, Charles Williamson. Okay, definitely time for me to put my face on. I had a quick meal before I realized I was getting ready to go live and had really eaten no substantial food. And then after eating a quick meal, I did want a quick cigarette. So I'm doing that at the moment. While I wait for a few people to come. Hello, Charles. Actually, there's something, because I'm on an 8 birth path, your inclusion of H's in my name actually works for me. Even though it's not how it's spelled, I like them. So thank you, Charles. And hello, Mari. So I picked an interesting... Hello, Jessica. Picked an interesting title because I just feel... Again, I'm always looking for topics to kind of to approach and discuss from a Gnostic perspective. And soul traps is certainly something I hear discussed a lot. And I think there's validity to the concept. Hello, Groovy. But part of what I really want to do is put that concept in a Gnostic perspective and how what I think is a legitimate concern for many people about soul traps can be avoided. So, but that'll go, because I'm going to do a little preliminary reading before I begin my normal talk. And then, of course, the other question I asked is, what's that smell? And by that, I mean about, some of us who, and I'm hoping that I'm talking to people who do the same kind of work. I'm not trying to be special here. When you go out into your either, dreaming, astral traveling, or using what I'm going to start calling the imagination body. Much safer way for getting around. Not completely safe, but safer. Let me adjust my windscreen here. And anyway, anybody who's kind of been, maybe, hello, Lee. Anybody who's been poking around a little bit energetically probably feels something rough and nasty that is looking to, you could say, invade, infest, infect, but there's something nasty out there, and it's looking for health, and it wishes to make it unhealthy. And transitional times are fairly good times for that. But anybody else who might be experiencing what I'm calling, what's that smell, or to kind of coin a phrase that Moose has used, something wicked this way comes. And the best way, I just really feel it's not, it's something we just want to be on guard for and to be on the lookout for, because I think some of it's going to show up as almost like as a dog wagging its tail. Hello, Moose. Okay. So what I wanted to do is there is some really good stuff in the Nag Hammadi text if you know what to look for. If you can look at the Nag Hammadi text from a more ancient Gnostic perspective, then you can see what's not, what comes from the traditions and which is part of what happened 2,000 years ago, what I would call the new aging of Gnostic thought. That would be where something like what the Gnostics were doing was, you could call an open source spirituality. But just like any open source, whether it's, an open source browser or an open source user system, like Linux, you have to have a kernel. You can't have an open source without a source. And so what often to me gets revealed in a lot of the Nag Hammadi text are people doing open source without the source kernel. And they're also trying to mix. It's almost like, they're in some of the combinations of motifs. It's almost like somebody trying to put together a Windows and an Apple operating system to work together. And I don't think that would be very successful. Okay, just had my little, like I said, I had my little pizza, and I'm also having a little bit of a cigarette to get grounded here. So let's see if I missed saying hello to anybody. I think I said hello to Lee, but if I didn't, hello Lee. And looks like I got everybody else. Got Jessica, got Charles, got Moose, got Mari, got Groovy. Groovy, I saw you schedule. Looks like you're going to be doing your live stream after this one ends, and provided I go full time, it don't end early. But I just want to promote it. Groovy Bean Dark Brew. That's the name of her YouTube channel, and she will be doing a live stream at 7 p.m. Pacific time, which brings it to 10 p.m. Eastern time, and then there's the math for Central and Mountain time. Hello, Have Faith. Good to have you here. So, I'm going to read something called The Thunder Perfect Mind. And it comes from the Nag Hammadi library. And it's written by somebody who has gone into some communion with Sophia. So it's written almost as if it was Sophia speaking, but we all know that this is somebody who's written it and was inspired, had these words kind of come to their heart, and then spoke them. And I think that's one of the things that I like about how the Gnostics handle transmissions from people. It's like, let's get it out there, let's share. There's no codification of like one specific thing, and even the Sophianic narrative is the agreement of like, thousands of years of shamanic intel gotten together, shared, and where a coherent cosmic story emerged. And so what's interesting about this particular read, The Thunder Perfect Mind, written by somebody speaking in as if this is the voice of Sophia or the goddess herself, but you can also see the timeliness of it. The words that will be read here, the expressions that are here, are from the perspective of how times are changing, how the once blessed and revered Sacred Mother has now been besmirched by the new god on the block. So it's a fairly long read. I might take a break, but please remember, this is somebody who had an encounter with Sophia, and this is what got written into his heart or her heart. All they have is who translated it, by George W. McCrae. And usually, I guess there weren't too much in the way of authors in the Nag Hammadi scripts, because like in a lot of people, it's not about you. It's about getting the intel out there. Okay, Thunder Perfect Mind. And remember, this is spoken through somebody as the voice of Sophia. I was sent forth from the power, and I have come to those who reflect upon me, and I have been found among those who seek after me. Look upon me, you who reflect upon me, and you hearers hear me. You who are waiting for me, take me to yourselves, and do not banish me from your sight, and do not make your voice hate me nor your hearing. Do not be ignorant of me anywhere or any time. Be on your guard. Do not be ignorant of me. I am the first and the last. I am the honored one and the scorned one. I am the whore and the holy one. I am the wife and the virgin. I am the mother and the daughter. I am the members of my mother. I am the barren one, and many are her sons. I am she whose wedding is great, and I have not taken a husband. I am the midwife who does not bear. I am the solace of my labor pains. I am the bride and the bridegroom, and it is my husband who begot me. I am the mother of my father, and the sister of my husband, and he is my offspring. I am the slave of him who prepared me. I am the ruler of my offspring. But he is the one who begot me before the time on a birthday, and he is my offspring in due time, and my power is from him. I am the staff of his power in my youth. He is the rod of my old age. And whatever he wills happens to me. I am the silence that is incomprehensible, and the idea whose remembrance is frequent. I am the voice whose sound is manifold, and the word whose appearance is multiple. I am the utterance of my name. Why, you who hate me, do you love me, and hate those who love me? You who deny me, confess me, and you who confess me, deny me. You who tell the truth about me, lie about me, and you who have lied about me, tell the truth about me. You who know me, be ignorant of me, and those who have known me, let those who have not known me, let them know me. For I am knowledge and ignorance, I am shame and boldness. I am shameless, I am ashamed. I am strength and I am fear. I am war and peace. Give heed to me. I am the one who is disgraced and the great one. Give heed to my poverty and my wealth. Do not be arrogant to me when I am cast out upon the earth, and you will find me in those who are to come. And do not look upon me on the dung heap, nor go out and leave me cast out, and you will find me in the kingdoms. And do not look for me when I am cast out among those who are disgraced in the least places, nor laugh at me, and do not cast me out among those who are slain in violence. But I am compassionate and I am cruel. Be on your guard. Do not hate my obedience and do not love my self-control. In my weakness do not forsake me, and do not be afraid of my power. For why do you despise my fear and curse my pride? But I am she who exists in all fears and strength and trembling. I am she who is weak, and I am well in a pleasant place. I am senseless, and I am wise. Why have you hated me in your counsels? For I shall be silent among those who are silent, and I shall appear and speak. Why then have you hated me, you Greeks? Because I am a barbarian among the barbarians? For I am the wisdom of the Greeks and the knowledge of the barbarians. I am the judgment of the Greeks and of the barbarians. I am the one whose image is great in Egypt, and I am the one who has no image among the barbarians. I am the one who is hated everywhere, and the one who has been loved everywhere. I am the one they call life, and you have called death. I am the one whom they call law, and you have called lawlessness. I am the one you have pursued, and I am the one whom you have seized. I am the one you have scattered, but you have gathered me together. And I am the one before you. I am the one before you have been ashamed, and you have been shameless to me. I am she who does not keep festival, and I am she whose festivals are many. I am godless, and I am the one whose God is great, and I am the one whom you have reflected upon, and you have scorned me. I am unlearned, and they learn from me. I am the one you have despised, and you reflect upon me. I'm the one you have hidden from, and you appear to me. But wherever you hide yourselves, I myself will appear. For wherever you appear, I myself will hide from you. And I'll take my break there, because that's really some very, very, very heavy stuff. And again, it's written in a style that I think really expresses the anxiety and the becoming lost in the as we kind of left the ancient world and entered what would become a different world. And a rough marker for that is the false designations of BC and AD. That designation did not exist apparently until Pope Gregory, or let's Capo Gregory, decided to mess with history. It seems like the Pope Gregory, the Protestant Reformation, the Guggenheim Press, and the rewriting of history by this guy Joseph Scaliger, who was a Jesuit, has kind of led to a lot to where we are and how we can perceive the world that we live in. Because as we look into our past, we don't see our story. We see his story. And his story is not our story. His story is kind of what happened to us once they were loosed into the world. Yep. So anyway, I need to just take a quick little breather here, because that was kind of wild. And just talk about energies for a bit, and tying into what's that smell. And then we'll get into soul traps and things. By the way, in the description of this, I put a link to metahistory.org. That's the site that's been up for a very long time. It's where John Lash puts the material that's after his book, not in his image. And where is that? Is that here? Gee, I don't even know where that book. I was going to hold it up, but Not in His Image by John Lamb Lash. Great book. Okay. Yeah. No, that's great, Charles. Actually, that's something I spoke on a little bit. The naming of this thing, this AI bot, naming it Sophia. I kind of follow John Lash that the woman's name Sophia, we pronounce Sophia, and we say like a different sounding of Sophia for the planetary animal mother. And so yeah, it's a mockery. I mean, I don't want to knock countries, but when I look at what's going on in Saudi Arabia, to me that's a mockery, and it's of its own. So yes, citizenship. Now, citizenship is really creepy on a number of levels, because once you're a citizen, then that means you can use the system. But now John Lash does have a current YouTube channel called The Mandela Effect Decoded. I probably should have put that link up, but actually it's on my page for YouTube. It's one of my featured channels, along with Raksha and Groovy and Nox Mente and all those good people. And I saw that little performance, and right away I said, nah, this thing isn't even, this is not a time, this is a show. Anything I've seen so far has been staged. It's like a TV segment. It's scripted. I don't believe for a moment that thing is speaking autonomously. It's either knowing what questions it's going to get and then kind of prepared for it, or there's actually, to me, somebody using Wi-Fi to, in fact, speak for it. Now, the fact that it seems to have almost have what one would call social justice warrior tendencies is so suspect. Because to me, from a human perspective, social justice warrior is not exactly the highest performance a human being can engage in. Conceptually, yes. Actually, very, very all over the place and without any real logic. Huge appeal to emotions. Yeah, Pistis Sophia is something I will get to at some point. But what I've been trying to do, Charles, is not so much just dive into it, because in my opinion, the book has been out since 2008. That's John Lash's book. His site has been up since at least 2010. I mean, for me to do, it's almost like I want to have conversations about what it's like to live from a Gnostic perspective. And when we look at look at our own New Age and all the information coming out, and then kind of, from somebody who will call themselves a Gnostic, because to kind of give you an idea of where I'm coming from as a cosmology. To look at those things, I think, can provide some clarity. Because really, when you look at kind of the New Age thing, everybody's it's good to be open-minded, but there's a point you can be open-minded while grounded. You kind of need a foundation. Again, you can be an open source system, but you still need that operating kernel. You need a kernel that you come from. I really feel that you kind of want to answer your own existential questions. Where did I or we come from? What's the purpose of it? And the Gnostics have been addressing this for thousands of years. Now, we don't get the real Gnostic texts. We got this little cache of, like 2nd century AD text from a group of Egyptians who were living around the Alexandria, probably the hotbed of philosophy and its abortion sophistry. Sophistry is to me the stillborn baby of philosophy. And of course, it's an archontic mimicry of philosophy. You can hear sophistry all night long on any news channel. So that's what sophistry looks like. It's a lot of words, seemingly connected, but if you kind of try to follow a logic or fit it in, you realize it's just poo-poo. So, hi, Soul Traveler. I'm just going to make sure. Hello, Robin. I hadn't greeted you yet. Okay. All right, so that's who I miss. Robin and Soul Traveler. Oh, and Speculum Niche. Hello, Niche. And so... I'm catching up on my thoughts here. So we really need a grounding, and as anybody know, if anybody who actually knows what Gnostics are and what they were up against, and even what we're reading in the Nag Hammadi text, because when I look at the Nag Hammadi text, I see a clash of worldviews. And it's almost as like two great waters meeting and clashing, and then you still have one body of water here. You still have the body of water that knows itself, but where it intermixes, there's this whole swirling, and it's neither fish nor fowl. And when I read the Nag Hammadi text, I see it's neither fish nor fowl. It's a little bit of both. And it's not a flying fish either. And it's confusion. It's trauma. It's it to me, and as I kind of was saying a little bit in one of my other recent things, there's a new aginess about what's happening in the Nag Hammadi text, where you see that there was, there was an ancient world, and the ancient mysteries probably represented the pinnacle of it, and the mystery schools were part of the Gnostics, and there was all kinds of smaller cults that came out from the like whether cult of Dionysus, cult of Demeter, Cybele, any number of the breaking up, especially because Greek thought really shattered the original solidity of Sophia. And their Greek myth actually is where we find where it happens. The most archaic of Greek myths, and I've said this multiple times, but it bears repeating. There was Gaia and there was Uranus, the sky god, and basically Uranus kind of was there. It's where we all came from, but some celestial phenomena were kind of accorded it, but everything was happening on the planet, on Earth, with Sophia, and the fact that she was the planet herself, had become that planet, as opposed or as differently than the humanoid species throughout the galaxy. Many of them having a millions of years head start on the same kind of species that would arise on the planet Earth. And part of the Gnostic mythos is that from the Pleroma she saw that the panspermia, and specifically the kinds of species that were going to carry the intelligence of the galactic center, Pleroma, the source of the galaxy intelligence, that from that perspective, she, wisdom, because that's what Sophia means, wisdom saw that it seemed to her, like if the experiment was going to do well, it needed more wisdom. So obviously some part of her, I guess the tale makes it sound like all of her left the Pleroma. I don't see how the Pleroma could be left without its wisdom. But she, again, some aspect, and it's, that stuff is the same stuff. I mean, you can see an amoeba turning into two different things. And I'm not using that exact analogy, but it's could kind of maybe get us in the park there. Checking on my people here, and checking on the people, and so what we see. So again, as I've been saying, the original Greeks had it really simple. There was Gaia and there was Uranus, the sky father, but everything was really, Mama was taking care of business. And then you see the break. Suddenly the Titans show up. And the absolute trashing of the mother begins. And the reason I say that is because as soon as we break from the original archaic setting of Gaia and Uranus, and we have the rise of Titans, and of course their main person is Kronos, Saturn, continue some other names, and they tell the story of Gaia conspiring with her son Kronos to overthrow Uranus. That's bullshit. But that's where the bullshit begins. That's where and it's part of the same narrative. It's part of the same kind of Genesis narrative, where the whole reason we're all so screwed is because Eve decided to eat the apple. It's all her fault. And so in the Greek myths, it's all Gaia's fault, because she was a faithless bitch, had conspired with her son to overthrow her own husband. Again, I mean, this is Hollywood screenwriting, which is why the myths do so well as movies, because there's not a whole lot of changing to the script. Hollywood, that kind of script writing, that kind of storytelling is all archontic. And that's why it's so easy to take scripture and then turn it into, like, Hollywood, the 10 Commandments, I mean, just think how easy it was to take sacred text and move it into a movie. It's almost as if like the sacred text was written from a script writer's minds. And in my opinion, it was. I mean, to me, the same minds that wrote much of the scripture that's now called scripture, or if not all of the scripture, not much of it. Because, again, scripture, a toxic narrative cannot hold its own. It has to be surrounded with good stuff. If you're going to make a shit sandwich, you got to use real bread to cover that shit in. So we kind of see the poison. I mean, really, I see the poison starting in the written record, in the Greek stuff. So that's what I think. This is probably a good segue for me to think about talking about soul traps. Oh, is Lee leaving? Okay, Lee, thank you for being here for the time that you were. Excuse me a second. Falafel. Yeah, falafel's good. Hello, Jet Pet. Raksha Moose took us all in the shower and we had no idea. Didn't give us a chance to avert our eyes. Which is a pretty funny scene in Monty Python when they're talking to God. And I like the way they portray God in Monty Python. Pretty goofy and silly. So soul traps. I remember when I first heard about it, I'm like, what's this? So I had to really spend some time. Not so much reading about it, but investigating. And like, where's this trap coming? And then so what I'm getting, what soul trap? Okay, looks like sexy girls for dating. Thank you, Groovy. I think I'm not sure, that might be the first bot that came in. And welcome back, Raksha. And so soul traps. Now, the concept of soul trap for like someone myself who is where they belong, working us alongside Mama in her dream on the planet that she is, trying to get a world that is as beautiful as the dream, instead of this current little iron prison, which is a Philip K. Dick concept, the iron prison. And yeah, the world is screwed up. Not the planet, not the Earth, the world. The world, yes, the world. That's the thing that intrudes. If you're ever alone in nature and somebody with a badge or some kind of officialdom comes in and bugs you, that's the world. That ain't the planet. And so, I see different ways that soul traps could be laid. One is that, again, the newer cosmology, the new system, the one that smashed as much of the old writings as they could possibly find. Don't forget, the Nag Hammadi texts were hidden away in a cave. That's the only way that they escaped those early centuries. I mean, had somebody found that a little bit earlier during that fervent, they would have been squashed. And I'm quite sure somebody looked at them and saw what was written, started seeing what was written, and go, no, this stuff is safe to release. This is, because this is like if we want people to think, if this Gnostic whisper is going to arise in the world today, let it be the whispers of the Nag Hammadi text, because that's about as confusing as it could get. So I really think if the Nag Hammadi texts had been real, I mean deep, clean Gnostic writings, they wouldn't have seen the light of day. I mean, the Dead Sea Scrolls, I mean, again, the Dead Sea Scrolls are actually various versions of, the Archontic story with their teachers of righteousness. That's a key phrase. Righteousness is an Archontic concept. Doing what's correct, doing what's right, what works, that's human. Righteousness, this kind of stick up your ass and God smiles on your, trust me, that is an Archontic concept. So when you read, if you'll see in the Dead Sea Scrolls, the teacher of righteousness, step away. Step far away from that. But even the Dead Sea Scrolls, which are really largely in complete support of the Archontic system, even they weren't sure whether or not they wanted to get that out. So I really believe that the Nag Hammadi texts saw the light of day because they're such a hot mess. Because if you're looking for what the Gnostics thought, and you don't know how to read the Nag Hammadi texts, you'll be lost. You'll be more confused than the people who belong to the Archontic systems, which are to me, from Zoroaster on down, it's pretty Archontic. When we look at, apparently the early Vedas didn't have a caste system. The moment you see a caste system entering into the Vedas, the Archons have arrived. And unfortunately, it looks like in India, the Archons arrived via something that might be a little bit Aryan. And the Aryan thing is something I look forward to picking apart. And I'll tell you, one person I'd really love to pick that concept apart with is John Lash. Because of the fact that he has people. He has people in Spain with him. He has his own community, and they do sky watching together. They do their own shamanic traveling, and then they campfire it. So there's a considerable source of intel there, but intel needs to really be shared person to person. You're really kind of hard to share. Even as I'm trying to share intel here, to me, the real sharing of intel is when we campfire. And I will be looking for campfires in the future. I just kind of had to get some things a little bit straightened out in myself, because I've had the longest period. I've probably had more little health bouts in the past couple of months than I had in the past probably 2 decades. Seriously. But the times, they are a shifting, and each one of those compromises in my health did create a pretty profound shift in consciousness. But each time the consciousness shift, it's almost like I step a little further out of the world and more into the dream of that is reality. And it creates some real dissonant resonances and pain. And one of the things I share with a few people, and I shared it with Raksha, about tapping, doing the kind of meditations and really trying to get a read of people, and just kind of tapping into what's going on at the emotional level of the average human experiencing this world right now. And I tapped into it, and it took me a day or two to recover just from tapping into it. The pain, the screams, the despair, the horror. It was painful. It was useful because in that pain, anytime you kind of feel pain, you go, oh, it seems like from there. I go, okay, well, it certainly, I get that most of what I'm feeling is the pain of other people, but I have to look through this because I know there's some pain of my own in there. And of course, I've been married 4 times. You know, I have a son by a woman that I wasn't married to. So there was, I definitely, as that pain, the many others come there, the first thing I did was address my pain that was part of the collective pain. So I could very cleanly deal with that. And that didn't take a long time. It was painful as hell. But it didn't take a long time to integrate. I can't, you know, we really can't integrate the pain of the world. We can only feel it and then integrate and then kind of acknowledge that's the kind of integration. It's like, wow, people are shrieking. This is what we're going through is exceedingly painful for people. And I think it has something to do as, I mean, even if it's as simple for some people, like the exposures of you know, wrongdoing in politics, in Hollywood. For many people, politics in Hollywood, you know, what do they say? You know, politics is Hollywood for ugly people. But you kind, you know, they're kind of similar resonances. And for a lot of people, some people, you know, thrive, they live politics. Some people love celebrities. So that you know, these kind of like, you know, are people that the average person will hold up in some kind of, you know, and look up to. And now a lot of these things are shattering. And as just like when I felt the pain of others, I could tap into my, you know, I found my own pain. Well, as people get shocked by some of these revelations, other revelations start to come up. And so that's kind of what I felt I was experiencing, is that as people are kind of becoming more and more aware of how this world is a lot dirtier than they thought it was, that's freaking them out. You know, there's a lot of people who really thought that you accept the world, you get, you know, if you want to raise a family, you better have two good jobs, and if you just kind of keep your nose clean, everything will be fine. You know, whatever. You know, the politicians are relatively honest. Hollywood is innocent entertainment, and all that's breaking down. And there isn't, like, they don't have a psychological safe place or sacred space is really what I'm trying to say. And that, to me, is part of where we are. The people do not remember how they were grounded and attached to this earth and the cosmology that was roughly shared from really, really rich ones to much simpler ones, but there was still a common understanding of being from the earth. And with the advent of male sky gods and their evil counterparts, things changed a lot. And certain things got forgotten. And so the original connection has been almost completely lost. And it's to me, it's the people like John Lash and his Gnostic reclamation that's based in a deep ecology. I mean, a big part of the Safayan narrative is a deep ecology. And oh, hello, Dr. Michael Miller, PhD. And so with the old one forgotten, the new one comes in. It provides a cosmology for real. But for me, it's one of the beginnings of a setup for a soul trap. That soul trap is the concept of heaven and hell. especially is the way they're set up. Some people go, hey, well, the Vikings had a hell too. Yeah, it was a cold place. When you live in a cold climate, cold is your hell. When you live in a desert, heat is your hell. Kind of interesting, isn't it? And and then, of course, with the heaven and hell concept, especially, again, from the new religions, is the judgment. So I feel that those concepts, heaven, hell, and judgment, are exactly where the soul trap happens, from that system. But that's a choice. That's a choice you're making. To me, well, yeah, it is a choice, because obviously, I mean, the way our faiths, religions, call it what you want, happen, they're almost like getting the color of your eyes. You're born with an eye color, and the way it happens in our system, basically, you're born into the narrative of whatever cosmology your parents embrace. You might be born into an atheist, family, and then usually in an atheist family, you get raised more on morals and ethics, which is not a bad thing. I've met atheists who I can work, kind of travel with at certain levels, fairly easy, when they're plugged into, like, let's say, the golden rule. The golden rule works. Just goodness for the sake of goodness. Well, nice strong human theme. Our families are in an earthly trap. But then now there's the other. Well, okay, I'll jump from the Abrahamic to a Gnostic perspective. And I mean a Gnostic and not a Nag-Gnostic perspective. Because in the Nag Hammadi things, you hear pleroma, pleroma, pleroma. Oh, we need to get out of this world, back to the pleroma. That's not part of the cosmic plan. The reason for panspermia was to get life forms out into the arms that could carry some of the intelligence that created those vehicles for carrying their intelligence. An amoeba, like one of the first things that probably came out of that whatever carapace that starts life on whatever environment. The reason that one cell thing can actually operate intelligently is because the intelligence that crafted the unfoldment of life from a single cell exploiting an environment carries that intelligence. It's obviously limited in its expression, but it's not limited in its a perception that is needed for its very simple existence. Its perception is exquisitely tuned for what it needs to be at that moment. So from my Gnostic perspective, and also the fact that we are aware, before the Abrahamic traditions, basically you went anywhere in the world and reincarnation wasn't a belief, it was an accepted how we did. We were in and out and in and out and in and out. And very often people would return to the same village and a lot of people would return. And this is where you start finding people who remembered and venerated their ancestors. Now, of course, the new religions like to call that ancestor worship because they don't know anything. They worship what they do. We revere, we hold in veneration, we celebrate, we embrace, we love. We don't worship. Worshipping is part of the archontic system. It's hungry gods. Worshipping is tied into the hungry gods that are parasitic, and they need worship. They're empty. They need validation. They call themselves great, but you need to prove it to them because they know they're not great. They know it. So we end up, the whole thing, it's a whole hungry God scenario. And it doesn't make a difference. The Yoruba tradition with the Orisha, Not an Abrahamic tradition, but it's a hungry God tradition. And how do you know they're hungry? That blood stuff, that's feeding. So the soul. So from my Gnostic perspective, there is no soul trap because there's no place to go. See, the solar system itself is an archontic construct to capture the Earth, and we are quote unquote captured, but it's really our process really can still unfold. The only real, we have two issues: the virus that got into mankind, and it was already there. I mean, I track historically. I track it to Abrahamic traditions. Trust me, it has earlier things, and even let's say the first one of the Abrahamic religions, which would be Judaism. Really, a lot of the thought that we see, it's clear to me it came out of Babylon. I mean, remember, the Israeli kingdom had been dispersed like almost 2 centuries before the Babylonian captivity of the kingdom of Judah. There's a lot of conflation, and from what I can tell, the kingdom of Israel and the kingdom of Judah were separate kingdoms for their whole time, except for Saul, David, and Solomon. Like, there was 3 reigns, there was 1 kingdom. After that, they went back. They were 2 kingdoms beforehand, and they were 2 kingdoms after that. So there's a whole, again, so who's who. But no, I don't really care. It's their story. It's their story, and I'm fine with leaving them with it. The fact that it's kind of spread in its own way, but it didn't spread through Judaism. It spread through Christianity and Islam. The seed was carried, but that's why they're called Abrahamic traditions. But from this Gnostic perspective, we're here. This is our home base. So when you die, you might rest. There's any number of things we can do. I mean, we have nature spirits, we have elementals. You can be that too, or you can come and be a human again. It's a matter of what you want to do within our realm, the Earth realm, and we're here with Sophia to become the sages of at least of this galaxy. She's wisdom incarnate. She's the wisdom that was emanated from the originator, and we have her with us, and that is, to me, that is who we are to become. If we are ever to remember where we came from so we can get back on track. We are so off track. And the New Age hasn't helped one bit. The New Age, I mean, really, without the New Age, we would be having a Gnostic discussion from people who are basically an Abrahamic or Buddhist and other traditions, Hindu. I mean, I don't want to just pick. It's not about picking on anybody. And I think it would be a lot easier. But the fact is, now that I feel like, the Gnostic thought is, the internet has helped enormously, is arising. It has this whole mess called the New Age. People proudly call themselves, I practice open source spirituality. It's more like open head spirituality, because there's no source. There is no source in open source spirituality, the way the New Age has it. And so it really becomes that milieu of anything goes is far harder to crack than some thought system a couple of thousand years old that's starting to smell of its age. So in many ways, to me, part of Sophia's correction is not complicated so much by the Abrahamic systems as the New Age garbage. Which actually, I'm working on a song, Going to the Moose Lodge. It's going to be a simple little ditty. And one little verse I wrote as going to the Moose Lodge, it ain't no hodgepodge of New Age garbage. Get what you need. So anyway, there's that New Age garbage. And like like a lot of people, you know, I mean, the New Age was fascinating. You know, it was this smorgasbord, and but you found out it really wasn't the best food combining. Okay, I'm gonna rest my voice for a second, have a little bit more of the cigarette I started an hour ago, and read the chat a little bit, because I've been talking a lot, and I would like as much as possible to have this conversation and what's going on in the live chat to kind of have some reason, you know, have some connectivity. That's the word I was looking for. I just like what I feel like I almost don't want to interject into that conversation, because I see a really great conversation going amongst a few people there, and I like it. So what, I mean, now I'm going to ask a question. Anybody got anything to say about all that? Let's see, I love it. Can't wait for the full song. Yeah. I said my little piece about soul traps. Anybody want to kind of, you know, tell me what they think about that? Do they think it's a valid concept? Can you see how it would work? I mean, can you understand the mechanics of how once you're released from your body, if you don't know where you came from, you could end up being misled because you don't have a map. And similarly, when I read a lot of the Nag Hammadi texts, when I hear some of the, you know, Miguel Connor, I love the guy. I truly love him, and I'm glad that he does what he does. I'm glad that he speaks what I would, you know, his Gnostic version, which I call Nag Gnostic. And that's not a derogatory term. It's a term of clarity for me. It is not like, oh, these are the Nag Gnostics and they believe all this silly stuff. No, because they're working from a body of texts that a lot of really, I mean, Elaine Pagels is no slouch of a scholar. She happens to be a Christian, though. Having a Christian interpret the Nag Hammadi texts was sure, I mean, which are quasi-Christian. They're really, I mean, again, they're very Levantine in their composition. But I can certainly see where you have an actual body of work that is reviewed by scholars, and then it gets released, you know, as a Nag Hammadi text. You know, different people, like I said, put out different versions. And how that seems like, hey, man, this is what you work from. And then you have an independent scholar, like John Lash, who, through unique skills that you're not going to get in a university, so you really can't collect the letters on these skills. So you could like spend your time getting these skills, or spend your time getting letters, so that whatever skills remain, people will think are important because you have letters from an institution that taught you nothing about what you're speaking about, but now you have letters, people are supposed to listen to you. This is the world for you. Anyway, for me, I'm very happy that John eschewed all that silliness and just got into it. Taught himself a little bit of Greek and a little bit of Coptic he could to make some sense out, dug deep into his own psyche, developed his own shamanic abilities, hooked up with other people, taught himself through whatever could be gleaned. And the interesting thing is, not astrology, but how to track planets and read them in constellations that are not part of the zodiac. Because the constellations are there. The zodiac is a clock imposed on the sky we can see. Okay, I'm gonna read what Niche wrote in a minute, but I don't want to distract myself if I haven't already. So John Lash has done an independent, thorough research, and his book, Not in His Image, is full of footnotes. It is a real scholarly work. He just can't put PhD after his name, and I think that's a good thing. We have a PhD with us. It's not disparaging that. There's a lot of work goes into a PhD, and obviously you don't get a PhD while working with a humble intellect. But again, we spend certain years of our life and money in certain ways, and some people choose one avenue, and some people choose another avenue. So again, I'm not trying. So I understand from the way we arise in this world and what we're taught to value. We're taught to value PhDs and MAs and BAs. We're taught that that's important. And matter of fact, that the more letters, the more you should listen to somebody. So I can see how, and then of course his age. Everybody's like, oh, how old? This is almost 2,000 years old. This must be important. And as opposed to somebody who puts together their own work, which is what John Lash does. So I can, again, I can't fault the people who I'm calling Gnostics. These are my brothers and sisters who, to me, are working with what they think is the best they can get. And so I guess, I'll leave it there. I see we've just crossed the first hour. So if I recall, Niche wrote something that I wanted to kind of go back to and see if it, okay. She wrote, the part of detaching is from the memory also. Well, she said too. Not just things, identity and all the usual, the whole in through Cancer, the moon veil, and out through Capricorn, Saturn's veil. Wow. Oh, did Darcy just join us? I really have a little trouble keeping track of who's coming and going. If I haven't said hello to you, Darcy, hello, Darcy, but I thought I saw you here earlier. Boy, it's interesting. It's really kind of interesting to be on this side of the camera, because most of the time when I'm reading chats, I'm in the middle of all that. Still trying to get to this. Finish a cigarette here. So is anybody else, matter of fact, I know there's at least 2 people in the chat that are sensing something nasty. And not just in the world at large. I think we all kind of know there's something nasty. But something nasty that's hunting. As Nisha said, there is a hungry energy right now. It's noticeable. As more and more people break free. Okay, so Nisha just exposed herself. You know, again, I was, you know, anybody, I'm just honoring the confidentiality of conversations had once, but Niche just let everybody in the chat know that she was one of the two I mentioned. Okay. I mean, I see, you know, Michael Miller, I thought shamanic potential was for everyone as long as people can start from zero. I'm not, I'm trying to figure out how we got there. Maybe that's just for, maybe that's not for me and that's for the chat because you know, some people are, okay. And I really, it took me, I guess it's been a few hours since I shared with a few people about this hungry energy, this stalking energy. And I think part of it, as more and more people kind of cut the cord to that, that means less and less energy that's been going to that. Okay, I did mention, or I'll re-mention that. More and more, I feel more and more people are kind of withdrawing from feeding that system. Something that's hungry, and especially insatiably hungry, as long as there's something always on that plate. But if what gets on that plate gets smaller, it's not always necessarily looking, it's not going to sit there and just wait for stuff to get on the plate. It might actually have to go out and look for stuff to put on the plate. So in many ways, I think this hungry energy, you know, here's the sexy girls for dating. I think this hungry energy is in one way, it's a positive sign, but at the same time, just because it's positive doesn't mean that it hasn't become more dangerous. Might become more subtle. Yeah. So fortunately, a big part of what we have all been doing is getting our discernment, which to me is immunocompetency. The ability to have an immune system, and an immune system isn't all about T killer cells. That's the end story. That's you know, that's when you bring in the special forces. The immune system is much more about being aware that something's in your midst that could morph. That dog wagging its tail that suddenly gets that crazed look in its eye. Okay, yeah, the reason I brought up shamans was because I was speaking about it as far as how a lot of the intel is gotten in the traditional world. Because you might have a shaman, but almost everybody in a given area is dreaming. And some people are not shamans, but they're still journeying, and they're going out there and they're getting all kinds of intel, and then you bring it to the campfire and you share it. And that's how you kind of expand. So the shamanic potential is a human potential. But shamanic and shaman shaman is a function. Shamanic are, to me, proclivities and ways of processing things that would be in the same vein of how a shaman would go about things. Shamans have a commitment to both sides. They have a commitment to the people that they're serving, and they have a commitment to the people, to the beings that are not obvious, to work with them. You know, it's like this. They stand as a bridge. Like, again, there's a difference between I have a shamanic practice. I am not a shaman. I do shamanic things. I am not a shaman. I can have shamanic conversations with a shaman like Raksha. We can, we can kind of, fly at a shamanic height, but I am not the shaman. Shaman's a heavy gig, man. Heavy gig. Heavy. So, thank you for putting the LOL in there, Charles. Oh, that's right. I shouldn't drink from my bottle when I actually have a pretty nice cup I can drink from. So every night when I go to sleep, I do my meditations. I know I will no longer call any of that stuff prayer, because we have to be aware of our homophones. Okay? Those are words that sound alike. To pray. When we pray, who's praying on us? Praying, I mean, there's, what can I say? There's a hunt going on when the word pray is there. I'm not going. The word prayer, I think, is one of those words I will have to take out of my lexicon. Anyway, last night when I was doing my connection meditations, and I always start with bringing a nice rich green into my heart chakra, because that is, for me, the heart is where that's my communication vehicle. That's where wisdom is, in the heart. The third eye is for seeing things. And if you don't have the wisdom of your heart, there's a good chance you will seriously misinterpret what you're seeing. An open third eye, to me, is something you come after you have fully negotiated and moved into your heart chakra. You will know when you're largely in your heart chakra when you stop having a lot of petty arguments with people. If you're still getting caught up in all kinds of nonsense, you have not moved into your heart chakra. You might have some access to it. You might even get in there once in a while. But when you really know in there, when you're just tired of all the na bullshit, and you really don't care, where your own ego is not important, that you want to be part of a team. You want to be a heart cell with other heart cells. And it's not like, oh, I did the biggest pumps. Again, there's so much silliness that enters into things. And the heart is certainly playful, but, just out and out, goofy, silly, to the point where it's actually masking dysfunction. And I think we've all been peasants, Mari. We've all been peasants. And peasant is not a bad thing. Kings. Now you're talking about something what's that smell? Peasants, yeah, they might have a smell, but it's a human smell. So anyway, last night when I did my connection, I'll get off the chakra thing, at least for now. I can always return there. Something new happened. It was really, matter of fact, it was interesting. A lot of times I'll go to sleep, and I'll have something playing in the background, and I never used to do that, but sometimes I go to bed like so late that my roommates are already up and they have the TV on, and I can't fall asleep with the TV coming through my walls. So I had put on something, and then I realized now I'm starting to go to bed earlier so I can have more of a day. And I think I was listening to something from Michael Tessarian, one of his Unslaved podcasts. And it was a pretty good podcast. But I started my normal process of communicating, got into my heart, reach out to Sophia, and a new way of entering into her dream happened. And as soon as I made that little way of how I even conceived of how I was going to interface with her, if you've ever seen any of the ayahuasca paintings, not so much an Alex Gray painting. He uses different colors. I'm talking about when you see that stuff that usually they're ayahuasca with lots of blues and reds and those really rich earth colors and things. I kind of entered that space. I guess something between, or maybe they're saying of the ayahuasca space and Aboriginal dream time. It was closer to Aboriginal dream time as far as how I felt, because it wasn't that kind of crazy busy of an ayahuasca place that I can understand. I've never taken ayahuasca, but I've taken some other things. But it was like, wow, this is new. This is so much closer. I mean, wow, whoa. But as I'm doing it, the video's playing, and it's kind of now it's crashing. So I had to interrupt it, go to my computer, and just shut it off. Because fortunately, I got into bed early enough. There was no TV in the background. I didn't need to have something on. I could have quiet, which is not something I get. I don't know if you can hear any sound in the background. That's the TV coming through. I love those people. I don't care if, the TV annoys me, but they don't. So, end of story there. And so after I got quiet, I went back, and I kind of was able to re-enter it, but almost as soon as I re-entered it, boom, I was gone. And next thing, and then it was 8 hours later, and my phone alarm was going off. Oh, forgot. I don't have to drink out of the bottle. Give me a nice cup here. Here's what the difference was. Instead of kind of really feeling, let's say, grounded, feet on the earth, connection to the earth, but even though you lay on your bed, but you can imagine, you can be laying down and imagine yourself standing straight up on the earth. And that's usually how I did it. But in this case, I had a real sense of knowing that reality is Sophia's dream, and then if mixed in with archontic nightmare thrown into the dream space. And to me, for the first time, entered purely into her dreaming. Not like on the earth as a dream, but it was entering a world where, in fact, the physical earth wasn't there. This was kind of, I guess, the causal aspect of the effect of the physical world. To me, it represented the next kind of access point to the causal. And man, it was full of color and love and movement And it felt like this is where to go. So last night was the very first time I ever accessed it. I kind of almost, it was kind of like, let me try this and it was like, oh my God, it was like falling into a rabbit hole, in a way. It was like almost, it was like a portal. That's what it was. It was a portal, and it was completely different than any space I have ever meditated myself into before. I have kind of mushroomed my way into a similar space, but in this case, I meditated and opened that portal, and there were people who say, there are ways of doing these things without drugs, and of course they're right. But it's better to get it done than worry about whether you got it done with or without drugs. But this was a case of like, whoa, man, now that's serious. So I'm actually looking forward to when I go to bed tonight and re-accessing that place. So I wanted to share that. It was really, really powerful, and given the creepiness, this hunting, I have a feeling that this will be a better vantage point to look at that from. So I'm going to take a quick little break here and see what's been going on in the live chat, because that's a very important thing for me. Like when it said, death teaches we must let go. Apparently there's a concept, and the first time I actually heard it was from somebody, Dan Winter. Dan Winter's quite a character, a lot of good information there. And he spoke of dying a good shaman's death. And to me, what that really means is as you're transitioning, you're transitioning. Like 1 minute you're looking in the eyes of people, and all of a sudden they start to fade, and other things come in, and next thing you know, you're looking at them and yourself, and you go, "Oh, okay, we've transitioned." It seems that if it's possible, to die conscious and very aware, like in other words, okay, I'm slipping, I've slipped, I'm here now, and that is dying consciously and non-fearfully. That's the other thing. It's just like, here we go. And that's why having a really powerful spiritual practice that involves you getting in touch with the non-physical part of life prepares you for that. It's not like there's any rush to get there, but when you meet that time, being able to conduct that with grace and, let's say, keeping trauma to a minimum, to non-existent as possible. Once again, the whole thing is if you can do it in real time and actually can feel it slipping away, and that'll get you to the other side in one piece. And I see the wisdom of that, and that really gets accomplished when the fear of death is taken away. Not maybe the mystery, but it's just like you're ready for it. And a shamanic practice is very helpful towards preparing for something we're all going to have to do, which is transition. We transitioned here, we'll be transitioning out, and it doesn't really matter whether the length of time. There is a point that you transition. Yeah, this is a great chat going on here. And so that's the other part of the soul trap is getting to that other side and whole, and like ready to have like kind of like the same street smarts on the other side. And so in case, and at the same nonsense, the same archontic programming that you recognize on this side is the same on the other side, because it's the same thing. So that's the other thing, is once you know what the adversary, once you know how the adversary uses language, or your hunter uses language, then if you are on the other side and you get approached by their language, you will know them. And that's where we become very empowered, because it almost doesn't matter what side of life we're on. We're still alive, and we're still within Sophia's realm. And that's the other thing, that was the main word of last night. I went into the earth realm. And the earth realm is almost like being in a dream womb. Yeah, like a dream womb. A case of where it's almost like a womb. It's only like, let's say there's a bottom and a top of a womb, where the bottom of the womb is the earth and the top of the womb is the sky. I mean, it was really this beautiful feeling of being in her being. And that being there was like, wow, this is it. This is where you kind of really get in touch. And not so much with her per se as the dream that we're in. The dream that we're in. And the beauty of that realm is you get to see a little bit of what it's like to be in her world and not this world. Because in this space I entered, there was none of this world there. Where in other meditations where I'm still kind of was more planet Earth based instead of Earth dream based, the world was still there. When I entered this, the world, okay, the archontic world wasn't. And that was something I needed that bad, because part of when I entered in and felt the screaming of the world, I couldn't get free of that. And last night when I went into her realm, the screams of the world were not there. They could, again, they weren't part of the environment like they're part of this environment. Speculum is Nisha's so trying to take me off my game here with her language. Did I drink out of my? It's so. It is so funny. I got this really. This is a nice glass, right? And you think, why doesn't he? It's just so funny. I keep on going for the glass like I'm some kind of homeless bum. And by that, I guess I'm thinking about, was it In Living Color or something, when one of those brothers, you remember, you had the guy who had the jar and he had the pickle in it. I think that was Damon Wayans who did that. That was pretty funny. I used to watch TV at one point in my life. So, where do I want to go? Darcy, I had the most beautiful mason jar I got from somebody. She had made me a nice batch of ginger tea, and it was a mason jar. It was one of those mason jar with a handle on them. I mean, and I guess somehow when I moved, I misplaced it. I don't know how I have to wonder if I misplaced it or somebody didn't like it as much as I did. Because I really, really like that. And when I went to I was looking at mason jars the other day, and I didn't see any with the handles. Not that I really want 12 or 6 mason jars with handles. You know, I'm a single guy. One is fine. Matter of fact, one of almost everything is fine. It's a little less dishwashing, at a time. Yeah. This is not a mason jar. This was once, I guess, might have been Muir Glen, who knows, any number of organic tomato sauces, but that's what this was. It was a tomato sauce jar. And the thing is, during the 6 years I worked at Omega for 7 years, but I lived there for 6. I used to walk around with two of these jars, identical. Because I used to bring between breakfast and dinner was 6 hours, and I usually needed 2 hour. I usually needed two jars of coffee to get me through the afternoon. And I had those same 2 jars for 6 years. They never broke, and I used to keep them. I have here's a little something I haven't worn in a long time. I used to go everywhere with this bag. I probably should go back here so I can see in my camera. I used to go everywhere with this bag. It's a nice bag. It has a little pocket on the outside, and just put it on and carry all kinds of stuff in it. And I used to have stuff in the middle, and I would put 1 jar here and 1 jar here with the stuff in the middle to make sure they didn't crack each other. And for 6 years, I never broke a jar. And I think this jar right here is one of those jars I had and that was like, I left Omega in 2015. So this has been a coffee jar now for, I don't know, 8 years or so. Yeah, it is a nice bag. The only thing it's made out of the same thing my jacket is. It's kind of the stuff that you would use in upholstery. So it's not a natural fiber. And that was the only thing I predicted. But again, it's a bag, so it doesn't really necessarily have to be a natural fiber. It's not against my skin. That's when it matters. Yeah, one of these days I actually have a jacket made of very similar stuff. It's a very, very nice jacket. I get a lot of compliments. Matter of fact, I was online with somebody who goes, "Oh, I recognize that's a Maresca jacket, right?" And I said, "Yes." She goes, "I know Johanna." And it just so happens Johanna is the daughter of the woman who makes this stuff. I said, I know Johanna, but actually I'm friends with her mother. And so occasionally people who go to Renaissance fairs will recognize the clothes I'm wearing because the person who's made a lot, especially my outerwear, is pretty well known in those circles. She's a little pricier than the others, but her quality is amazing. And back when I was working, I could go out and spend a couple of $100s on things. I could go out and spend a couple $100s on a lot of things. Whether those times will return, who cares? I mean, I had a good spate of just buying just about anything that of utility or even a little bit of want instead of need. Oh, you do? Okay, yeah. That raw silk. That's what I liked, right? She was big on that raw silk, and I like raw silk. That's great. That's really nice stuff. it's a little bit almost like, it's almost like bamboo. But you know that they make a bamboo fiber? That's what this is. My God, I have to go back to my main thing because I won't. This is bamboo. And if I had to pick one fiber that bamboo feels like, it feels like raw silk. A lot, it really does. But it's really a nice fiber. I like it. Bamboo. Yeah, I like boots as long as they don't have heels. Once they have heels, we've gone into tart territory, in my opinion. And I ain't big on tarts. At least not tart, you know, women tarts. Not too much divine feminine energy for me. It's really fun to talk with people who know fiber, because fiber is such, you know, the fibers and textiles and things. I mean, that's its own. There's a whole geek world of arts and crafts and fabrics and those techniques, and so it's fun. I gotta leave some of these comments alone so I keep my friends. So I think I want to. I mean, we're not quite to closing out here yet, but I have. Let me kind of do this. We'll get me off of here for a second. And so now we have the metahistory.org thing, and I just really want to introduce people. This is John Lash's site. This is the main page, and his home, Lydia's Well, guidelines, Gnostic, Sky Lore. That's a new one that I have to crack, because Sky Lore is reading the sky, but not astrology. Gaia Sophia, the 2012 shift. I should probably mention that for a second. The 2012, I'll put myself back on here for a second. The 2012 shift, which of course, you know, everybody, I think probably remembers that. I shouldn't say I hope. But I was living in Michigan at the time with somebody who had their own, they were a magical person, kind of a witch person. And they didn't buy into it. Now, I was doing the Gaian navigation experiment, which had started in 2011. And it was John Lash giving I think it was at least weekly, like hour-long talks that he sent out to people on his mailing list. It was an amazing adventure. But what was nice is, you know, like I was also on Project Avalon during that period. I was actually during that period that I was on and then left. I left Project Avalon while I was in Michigan. So it was right around that whole period that I left Avalon. And why did I leave Avalon? Because of the person who runs the place, basically. Notice I didn't mention any names. If you don't know who runs Avalon, that's fine. If you do know who runs Avalon, you know who I'm talking about. So along comes 2012. You know, December 21st, 2012. Ascension. And of course, I mean, none of it made. I mean, I said, how can people ascend into a fourth dimensional vibration when they haven't got their first three chakras figured out? I mean, you cannot. I wouldn't know how majority of the people in this world could fit into a fourth dimensional expression of wisdom when they're still basically emotionally. So many people are emotionally still not adults. And I've even read in our own chat people claiming to be in their teens in their emotional age or something. So there you go. I mean, it's not like an accusation. People are saying, oh no, I'm still 15. Yeah, we've observed. I left Avalon because of the owner, Charles, and what it was. So, and again, I'm not here to, again, to really go there is to talk about people, and that is the low, talking just about people in a Godspeed way is about the lowest form of conversations we can have. Seriously. I mean, I like that, Eleanor Roosevelt, she might have been an elite, but she had a good saying. Great minds discuss idea, average minds discuss events, and small minds discuss people. And I find that that's a pretty good guide. Whether, to be taken as harshly as it sounds is one thing, but as a guide, yeah, the moment I find myself talking too much about people, if there isn't something to learn from the fact that we're using people, that we might use them as a mirror for ourselves. I mean, if we're going to use people as a mirror for ourselves, then it's okay. But when we use other people as basically a dartboard, it's not so cool. I probably should go back to my thing. Sometimes the chat can be, what the heck is this? Oh, I know what I just did. Okay, it doesn't matter. So anyway, I wanted to get back to the let me get down to my browser. Oh, I bet because I gotta get the right page there. Okay, now I can go to my browser. Back to my browser. So anyway, this is metahistory.org. Oh yeah, I didn't quite finish my thought. So when 2012 came along, it was we in the Gaian navigation experiment were doing it as Sophia's correction. That's what it was called, Sophia's correction. And John was reading the sky, and in almost every single week or every other week or 10 days, whenever he put out his talks, he would be tracking the various nodes in the sky, where they, not only what constellation, but even with the last one that happened around the eclipse, it was where in the constellation, was it in the thigh, was it in the head, was it coming from the heart? Those are like clues to things. Okay. I just had a voice of Sophia communicate with me. Anyway, oh man, that ain't cool, Rad. Putting my messages up. That's one of the things that's really tricky here that I gotta, I think, I had my face on, good. Wasn't sure whether I had, went and read a private message and I had left the wrong window open, but it looks like I got it right. Okay, let's get back to that and make sure I stay on that page while I'm doing this. So it was really good to be able to transition, to make the 2012 transition with a navigator. That's the role that John Lash played, as a navigator, somebody who could read the sky and then interpret it. And it was fascinating, and he was quite generous. I mean, John Lash is an amazing, generous teacher, like Raksha. And I would like more people to at least visit metahistory.org. It's a humble site. As you can see, it's not flashy because it's there for information and not to delight. I would love it not to have it in such a stark white thing. I like the darker ones. They're easier on my eyes, but the quality information here I find really astounding. And let's see if there's anything there that I might read. So, as metahistory.org charts a passage beyond the received scripts of history and culture toward a free world from enslavement to historical lies, toward a world free from enslavement to historical lies and unexamined beliefs. Humanity is a species endangered by its beliefs, and most of all, its religious illusion of superiority. To go beyond history is not solely a human prerogative, for the path ahead is not ours alone, but the way of all sentient beings. Closely aligned with deep ecology and going deeper, this site develops an open source spirituality that reflects and engages the innate sanity of the human animal. It explores the prospect of a genuine planetary outlook, a way to live bonded intimately to the earth and co-evolving with the non-human world. That would be animals and others. Toward that end, it invites a future myth, a story to guide the species and align one person at a time to Gaia, the living planet. And then he has a nice little write-up here, the Gaia mythos. And this to me, this breakdown of the Gaia mythos, and a lot, he recreates a lot of the material that you would read in his book, not in his image. And it's, you know, you don't have to buy the book. It's right here, and much of the work he did in his book gets expanded on his site. So I highly recommend metahistory.org. If what you're able to glean of what a Gnostic mythos is something you want to check out, and it's not based in the Nag Hammadi, but when it does use the Nag Hammadi text, it's able, because of having an older origin, it's able to kind of pull the old that's mixed in with the new, so that the confusion that is just part and parcel of the Nag Hammadi text is not so much so. Okay, let me make sure I'm safe in my camera and I can go look back at my live dashboard. Okay, so let's catch up with the live chat. It's interesting. I'm reading about C-Dub is live, Rad is live, Groovy is live. I'm spoiled for choice. Groovy shouldn't be live yet. She should be live in about 10 minutes. Okay, give me a second. So she'll be live like in 12 minutes, and CW goes live when he wants. I mean, sometimes he's aware and he'll do it, and I guess it depends on his mood. And and I would, what he's doing and what I'm doing are different enough. So anyway, in the last 10 minutes, if there's any kind of way we want to dialogue, I'm not going to read any more than I know of. I think my voice is kind of wearing out. And so, anybody got anything to say? That you write in the chat and I read it and then I talk to you. And if not, I'll look for something to jump in on. I like what Darcy said. We should be mutants or dead if they had it right. We are troopers, AF. I'm not sure. Maybe that means as fuck. The interesting thing is, just before I went live, I was listening to some of, I forget what Danny's last name is. She does Removing the Shackles with the Unfuckers. And they were also kind of commenting on the same thing about, it's just like, they are seriously trying to do us in, and they're not succeeding. Yeah. My voice sounds finished. Yeah, it's getting there. No question about it. Good thing I don't have to sing. But I'm gonna have to get my voice in shape so I can at least put down the vocal track for my "Going to the Moose Lodge" song. I really that's like the I have to get that done because it to me it's probably going to be about 2 minutes of song, so it only should take me about a week to do. Okay, I'm going to put actually. I think you can find it there, but I googled it. It's under gnosis.org. I'm just going to put the link right into the dashboard here. That's where Thunder Perfect Mind came from. If I had an acoustic guitar in here, I'd probably play it. And I do have one acoustic guitar, but I tuned it to Dad Gad. Dad Gad is a tuning on a guitar where actually the Dad Gad is the names of the strings. Would be you tune it to D A D G A D, which is not a normal guitar tuning. And Dad Gad is the tuning Jimmy Page used to play the song Kashmir. And on the first album, just before Communications Breakdown, there's some Black Mountain song or something. That's also in the Dad Gad tuning. It has a beautiful, and it's an open tuning. It sounds beautiful just to strum. But I wouldn't be able to play Going to the Moose Lodge on it. That's a regular tuning. I played it a little bit to a friend of mine on my telly last night, but I didn't tune up my telly, and I don't feel like tuning up, or else I give everybody just a little taste. Somebody thought naughty thoughts. So anyway, I'm probably going to, I have a few more minutes here because I don't wait until exactly 10 o'clock. I wait for a few minutes so that way everybody has transition time, myself included. Yeah, I got three guitars just behind me. I bought a baby Taylor, and Taylor's actually a very good guitar maker. And I go and pull it out of my closet. I couldn't, I don't know what else. It didn't affect anything else. I had my Fender in its own zipper case right next to it. But for some reason, some kind of strange rust had developed on my zipper. So I got out some WD-40. It took me a while. Finally, I was able to unzip the case, pull out the guitar. The strings have the same kind of rot on. It was really weird. It was like some kind of corrosive miasma visited my guitar. One of the strings had broken. I was like, oh, I haven't played my baby Taylor in a long time. It's a great little guitar. Better give it some love. And I pull it out, and it's like, I don't know. It's like somebody put it in a corner and had a beer party and used it for a urinal or something. It was a mess. So anyway, so I'm going to bring this to a close and get ready for my Groovy Bean and Lisa Tenney experience. So that's over at Groovy Bean Dark Brew if you don't know. And it begins in 5 minutes from right now. And I want to thank everybody who has been part of the live stream. And it's been a lively live stream. And I hope that my end held up okay. If nothing else, just at least provided a voice in the background for everybody to have a good time in the chat, which is really such a huge part of community. Rusty Zipper, poor guy. Mary, my son's an Aspie. We don't say have Asperger's. We're Aspies. We don't have it. I'm an Aspie, and my mother was an Aspie. One big Aspie family. The hardest part of being an Aspie is dealing with the non-Aspies. And really, it's much more empowering to say, I'm an Aspie, rather than saying, I have Asperger's. Because then it sounds like you got a condition or something, as opposed to a different soul path than your brothers and sisters. And that difference, like, let's call the Aspie and the Normie, they need to actually, they work better together. The Aspie gets stuff that the Normie doesn't, that can enrich their life. And the Normie lives in the world that the Aspie really struggles with. And boy, they could really use guidance, let me tell you. It can be a very beautiful relationship, the Normies and the Aspies. But they just, I mean, the Aspies usually are cool. I mean, they better be cool with the Normies. They far outnumber them. Asperger's, yeah. Been a long time since I had an Asperger. So anyway, yeah. I was called an Asperger's. I didn't know what it was. Well, the interesting thing, the official diagnosis for Asperger's, I think, was like in 1991 or something. My son was born in 1996. And then I forget Mr. Asperger's first name, and I have a paper he wrote that I haven't read. But he was an Aspie. So to me, one of the reasons I look forward to it is that this wasn't like something written by somebody who's like looking at the Aspies as something weird. To me, it's about being an Aspie, written by an Aspie. So when it is, I look forward to reading it, because to me, let people tell their own story. Instead of some, like psychological experts, who have no idea of what kind of eyes we're looking at the world from, and they're going to judge us. A nice 2-finger salute for them. A finger from each hand, of course. Anyway, that's it. I got to go. And love you all. Mwah. I honor you all. And I'll see whoever we see over just a stone's throw across the cyber stream. Anyway, that's it. And thank you all for coming. And I'll see you next week. Can you hear me, Gnostic?